and you've got Francine Gianni and her henchmen doing this very same thing. And they finally got busted in the media on it. It's highly unusual, by the way, in this day and age for the media to do their job, what I call their job, of being the people's check against government. Too often the media is the government, is an extension of the arm of government, and being their check against people. So kudos to the Salt Lake media for catching Miss Gianni recently. Last week, you notice in Salt Lake there were media reports that Miss Gianni's right-hand man, Division Director Wayne Klein, had abruptly and surprisingly announced his resignation from the Division of Securities. And here's what the Salt Lake Tribune had to say, quote, "Amid concerns of mismanagement, too many unfair prosecutions, and ongoing state audit, the director of the Utah Division of Securities is stepping down. Wayne Klein, who was named director in October 2005, said he'll be leaving his post at the end of the month. Quote, I just felt this was the best way to divert criticism from the division and the important work it does so that someone else can come in and have a fresh start." Now, those aren't my words. Those are his words as quoted in the Salt Lake Tribune. Now, and the words of the Salt Lake Tribune reporter, amid concerns of mismanagement and too many unfair prosecutions, I wonder, I mean, one can't help but wonder, how many unfair prosecutions are too many? I mean, this is my question to Utahns. How many unfair prosecutions are you willing to tolerate? What if it's you as the businessman? Or what if it's the company you work for? You see, one of the things that happens is guys like Wayne Klein have impeccable credibility when they are the commissars. And you know, I've even got Dorco people, you know, kind of the freak of the week for the last 10 months, Robert Paisola, you know, in an interview with Wayne Klein on his website, as if Wayne Klein is this authority figure. And it's been my experience that Wayne Klein doesn't even know the basic rudiments of securities law. In my own personal conversations with Wayne Klein, he strikes me as incompetent. And, you know, I know there's some people saying, oh, I can't believe you're calling him names. I'm not calling him names. I just mean his background is in antitrust law. And in a simple conversation, he has to be taught what the law is by defendant's counsel because he doesn't know. He seems to have the idea that whatever he wants to do, he can do. And that's what leads to this mismanagement and unfair prosecution. And I'm just speaking from personal experience. Let me give you an example. I remember one conversation with him where we were having a basic conversation of what an accredited investor was. And this is kind of the ABCs of securities law. And, you know, I didn't know what an accredited investor was not all that long ago, but here's a guy who is charged by the legislature with being the head regulator of securities law, and he had to read the definition out of the law books, and he even got it wrong. I mean, reading it, he got it wrong. We got into this kind of mild argument, and it was just sickening to me to think that the guy who's supposed to be the head of all securities laws has to kind of read the instruction manual for the ABCs of the, you know, he's an embarrassment to good attorneys in the state of Utah. A matter of fact, I had one of his former employers say to me that he was an embarrassment to government, but it was just too hard to get rid of him. That unless you reined him in on a tight leash, he was often getting personal and going after people with personal vendettas, and that he wasn't as much interested in justice as not looking bad. And I think it's telling when his quote in the Salt Lake Tribune, he says, I just felt this was the best way to divert criticism from the division and the important work it does. Bull. If you think about that, that is such hypocrisy. If you're really doing the good work of the division, are you worried about criticism? I mean, if you're doing good work and you stand on your own merits, like a man like Gary Kennedy, who says, "Hey, mortgage your house. If you're not doing wrong, you stand up." If Wayne Klein isn't doing wrong, if Francine Gianni's not doing wrong, why are they worried about avoiding criticism? I mean, it's this weird philosophy in government that, well, I'll tell you what's really going on. The only time government bureaucrats step down is when there's pressure brought to bear. And he didn't like the pressure being brought to bear for whatever reason, and who knows what the real reasons are. I mean, we can only speculate. But in his own words, he says, I just felt this was the best way to divert criticism from the division. Why is it his job to divert criticism from the division? Let me ask you this. Here's my question. When an email gets sent from the Division of Securities to the State Attorney General accusing legislators of being in my back pocket when they're not, accusing legislators of being investors in my company when they're not. When bureaucrats like Wayne Klein lie to elected representatives, why is there a double standard that says they can get away with that, but if a businessman unintentionally says something that someone in hindsight says, well, that's a misstatement, they go to jail? See, I don't think Wayne Klein should be stepping down. I think he should be going to jail. Because if he's a liar, and if he's impugned the reputation of other elected officials who are, quote, trying to take away his power in an effort to divert criticism, I think that's much more damaging to the state of Utah and to the citizens of Utah than a businessman who gets carried away making overly optimistic statements about his business. I mean, I don't know. You decide. What would you rather have? Businessmen who are over-optimistic about the success of their business, or regulators whose goal is to divert criticism at all costs? You decide. Well, anyway, absurdly, perhaps, I think Ms. Gianni is trying to disentangle herself from the brewing scandal, because much more of this story that's just now being reported is going to come forth about the Department of Commerce. Ms. Gianni, interestingly, defends Klein. She says he's been a good director. Well, what evidence does she have that he's been a good director besides unfair prosecutions and mismanagement? And she says in terms of his background in the securities industry, I would challenge, I'm unaware of his background at all in the securities industry. I would like to know what background Wayne Klein had that qualified him for the appointment. I would like to know. I've researched and I can't find it. Now, if I'm a bad researcher, I'll be accountable for that. But I'll challenge anybody out there. I'll pay $100 to someone who can give me substantial evidence, verifiable evidence, that Wayne Klein had any background in the securities industry prior to getting appointed by Francine Gianni. And it just makes you wonder, how did Governor Huntsman appoint Francine Gianni to be the executive director of the Department of Commerce, and then let her appoint Wayne Klein, because he doesn't get his job without the governor signing off on it, without either one of them having a background in securities law? I mean, that's just weird to me. Francine's not even an attorney, yet she's the head of all the bureaucrats who get to make legal decisions that affect day in and day out operations of the state. I think, and I don't know, I mean, I'm not attacking the governor here. I'm just asking questions that I think are legitimate questions. What do you do when you've got someone like Francine Gianni, who maybe is a good woman? I don't know her. Maybe she's a good woman, but she's got a bent against businesses. I mean, her background is in going after businesses. But if you give her a job like the executive director of the Department of Commerce, she's got more responsibility than just going after businesses. She's also got the responsibility to be fair. And Ms. Gianni is letting the state of Utah down right now because that is not her agenda right now. Well, let's hope that she was simply posturing in her defense of Wayne Klein. It's my personal experience that both of these people have another think coming. Now,